Hey, Mrs. Kapper here. So I'm finally going to put together this table video, and it's the farmhouse table that I'm going to use for Kentucky. I know it has taken quite a while to get done, but it is finished. So I'm going to show you my steps and how I did it. Now, I do want to make a couple of disclaimers first. First of all, I am not a professional furniture maker and never will be. I really don't like right angles or straight lines. They actually scare me. I like working with natural curves with wood. But I gave it a try. I did make my own custom size. I needed something that would fit in that kitchen in Kentucky, so it will sit up to 6 people if needed. So I'm sure I made it a lot harder than it needed to be. There's probably a lot better and easier ways to do this. But I'm just going to show you how I did it, because I really did learn from a lot of mistakes I made, and I'll share those with you. But the best part is that I had fun doing it, and that's why I do this. So back to the table. Like I said, I'm not a professional, so there was no way I was going to try and make these legs. So I did order them. They were about $28 a piece. They are pine. They're 27 inches tall. They did come really nicely finished already. I mean, I barely went over with some 220 just to smooth out some of the edges. So I started out with some 1x3s that I was going to use for the apron. I got those cut, and then I was able to use my Craig jig, which I know that there's electric ones and bigger ones, but this is what I had. First time I was using it, I read the instructions, I practiced on some wood, and thought, wow, this is pretty slick. So it came with its own drill bit. I did make my holes, and it's easy to take out of there. But my first mistake, I accidentally did it on the wrong side. Yeah, and I didn't have any more. That was my last piece. So, lesson learned there. Make sure you got the orientation right. But you know what? I was thinking other people must make mistakes. Look at that. They give you these plugs to put in. So, because I didn't have any more wood and I had to use that piece of wood, I just put a plug in there, just glued it in and tapped it in, and then let it dry and just sanded it so it was smooth. So, you know, it worked. So I had it all set up. I had all of the apron around it, and, you know, just looking at it and feeling it, it just seemed a little bit too flimsy with that 1x3 for the apron. So I decided to do over and to use 2x4s. And when I was looking at different patterns, some use 2x4s and some use 1x3s. I would highly recommend the 2x4. Much easier. And now I figured out how to do the holes in which side. I got some of the Craig screws, the pocket hole screws, worked pretty slick. Got it clamped down and put a little spacer underneath to get that space between the apron and the outside legs. I glued all of the ends together before I screwed them and got them all in place. So miraculously, it all came together, and when I was using the square, it was actually square, which really surprised me because I was anticipating a lot more problems with getting it squared up, but it didn't. I got it stood up, and it was actually level. That was another miracle. So for the boards on the inside, I had some 2x4s that I spaced out. I think I put 3 in there. And I was also then going to put some corner braces just to keep the corners square. I got the centers attached with pocket holes in those screws. And then I just used some leftover 2x4s to make the inside corner brackets. And for those, I just glued them, and then I just used screws because I didn't put the holes in. So I just used the old-fashioned way and just drilled some holes, toe-nailed it in, and did it that way. Like I said, it was truly a miracle that it even stood up by itself. and it was actually square. The wood itself is pine, had a lot of knots in it, so I needed to cover those knots with a primer, otherwise the tannins are going to bleed through. Even if it looks like it's covered right away, within a few months or even years, the tannins bleed through from the knots. I highly recommend this. It worked great. You only need one coat. I had it tinted gray, so it was closer to what the table color was going to be. If I did white, it would have been a little bit harder to keep it or to cover it without seeing the white come through. So I put one coat on there. It dries to a chalky finish. I did not have to sand it or anything. And then I went right to the paint. So the paint, I don't really recommend paints, but man, this worked great. I wish I would have used it on the cabinets for in the kitchen. It's an enamel cabinet paint, and it's self-leveling. So even though you're putting it on with a brush and there's some brush marks, after it dries, you don't see the brush marks at all. And on here, it's still a little bit wet. That was the frame part of it. Coming soon, part 2 is the tabletop build and finish. And I'll give you a couple sneak peeks of what I'm going to be putting in there. All the way from gathering the wood, cleaning it, finding some surprises, and looking at how I was going to put it together, the breadboard design, and the finishing. So stay tuned, more to come.